Hello, everybody. Welcome to the XP Billionaires podcast. If you've come here looking for financial advice, I'm sorry, that's not the kind of billionaires we are. However, if you like video games, stick around. Maybe we'll entertain you nonetheless. My name is Ray Thagrim. I am joined by Sky Knight and the Melzerker, and we have got some fun, some interesting topics, and all this other crazy stuff about RPG video gaming that you could ask for. But before we get into all of that, we got to say hello to everybody. I'm doing great, so let's find out about everybody else. Sky, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm all right. It's been a crazy time. I got my first dose of the vaccine yesterday, so that was nice to get done. Yeah, woohoo!
Yeah, I got mine too, which is great.
Yep. And let's see, what have I been gaming lately? I am gaming a little bit more now. I've started the Nocturne, Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne remaster, which is fan-fugu-tastic. I'm not gonna lie.
Amazing, yes.
Yes. Looks beautiful. Now, unfortunately, it is a bit of a bare bones remaster, but they did. I think the most significant thing I've seen thus far is that they added voices. And I don't know about the English ones, but the Japanese voice track seems very competent. I'm quite pleased to see that. And yeah, they've upscaled everything really nice. So hopefully I'll have some pictures on Twitter at some point. Unfortunately, we had to go on a hiatus for a week because, well, we went 6 days without internet here. So made it a little difficult to do a podcast.
And you survived.
I survived.
Well, sort of. Use data.
Yeah, I used my phone data, but that doesn't help us with the podcast.
No, it keeps you sane, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, I mean, I haven't done no, I can't say it's something I haven't done a whole lot. I spent the last week, since we didn't have internet, I was playing through Tales of Berseria. I think I'm that much closer to the end of it, so I think another good solid few days of it, and I should be able to get it cleared, which is nice. But beyond that, I also downloaded the demo for Disgaea 6. So it looks good. I'm not sure yet how I feel about the 3D sprites. I think I got to play it a few more times to get a better kind of feel for it, and the special skills, that kind of thing. So I don't know. There's something about that anime style that it had. I'm not sure if it's translated well into the 3D, but we'll see. Maybe this is just part of the demo and it doesn't really give me the final look of everything. So we'll see. All right, Mel, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I've been racing around all day today, feeling like I am forgetting things. I become a filthy casual gamer. I spend so much time on my phone playing random apps. So I've got to fix that. I gotta game up. I'm hearing really good things about the new Mass Effect trilogy, so that's probably gonna go on my list as well. But yeah, I got my vaccine a while back, so now you're all in my super cool club.
Amazing. I love being there. I think do we get any like cool handshakes or secret code words or anything like that?
Yeah, definitely. But technically, you guys have to wait like 2 weeks for it to really settle in your system, and then you'll know it.
All right. Fair enough,
you'll just become aware at some point. There's a dance.
Awesome. But that being said, let us get on to this week's topic. We have got something very interesting for you guys this week. So we're going to talk about characters again, but in this case, characters come in all different shapes, sizes, and for the purpose of this week's episode, tropes. So in RPGs, that's really no exception. Some bring meaning and purpose to your character, while others can be bland, overused, and honestly sometimes insulting. Like, if you've been listening to us for a really long time, I think it's pretty obvious where I'm going with this. But for those of you who are new to the show,
it's time for another good idea, bad idea.
So for all you newbies out there, so this is basically where we share examples of some of the best and worst, well, whatever the subject is for the week. In this case, we're going to be looking at character tropes. Now, what we've done is we have taken tropes that can be found on tvtropes.org. And what we're going to do is we're going to post the link for all of the tropes we've discussed on all of our episode descriptions, and that will also be part of the episode release when we post it up on our website at xpbillionaires.ca. So that'll probably be the easiest way for you to find it, because I know not all the podcast apps out there kind of really give you a good, easy display of our links. So definitely check that out there. So without further ado, we're going to get started. I am going to actually give you guys a start off this time. So for my good idea in this tropes world, one of the ones I really, really enjoy is called the morality dial. Now, this trope, if you read into the actual article, it's typically used for robots or, sentient, non-biological organisms. So I know one of the examples they put in there was the evil Krusty doll from one of the Simpsons Halloween episodes, which, hilarious. Classic Simpsons, everybody. Anyway, but I actually have to argue in this case that since video game characters are technically programmed people, I feel like it applies in this case. And the way I've made it apply with the best example I could think of is coming from Shepard from Mass Effect. Like in this game and others like it, you're basically given multiple options to slide that morality dial to what you want it to be for that situation. This is effective because, in my opinion, good storytelling shouldn't be all about one or the other. It shouldn't have a black and white narrative. You got to have those gray areas. Even if you're playing a heroic character, sometimes you got to take the bad path because it may be bad, but it's the right path based on your perspective. And regardless of the choices will always have consequences. And those consequences, especially with RPGs, they're starting to get better and better, more visible with the way games are designed now. So it just makes everything feel that much more genuine as we progress. So that's really my example. I'm at the point where I've actually been thinking about starting a run on the Mass Effect trilogy again myself, with the Legendary Edition coming out. I've honestly been thinking about being the worst possible Shepard I can be. Like, I want to be like full on evil, kill everything, no holds barred, be a dick to everybody. I'm even thinking of going so far as to bang the racist. Like, I don't know. Like, I just really want to emphasize that evil. But the question is, am I going to be able to do it? And I know Sky asked me that specifically when I told them about that idea. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you have it in you.
Can you be that evil? Come on. I mean, there's a few moments. Like, there's one moment in Mass Effect that I remember. There's like some Krogan and he's lecturing you, and it just pans down. And it's like, renegade, shoot the gas tank below him. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. And it tells you 3 times, just as he's rambling, like, you could do it though.
I don't actually remember this, so I got to watch for it in my next playthrough. But I don't know. It's just something that I think I want to do. And like, I've never done something like this before. So it's a challenge for me. And this would be, in my opinion, one of the ultimate breaking out of my shell styles of RPG gaming. So I don't know. I think it'd be worth trying. We'll see if I can do it. I'll let you guys know how it goes once I get there. All right. So moving on to my bad idea. Now, I didn't find the specific trope I was looking for here. So the link that I'll have on the website is more to the actual generic trope, which is actually a genre rather than a character trope. But I'll go into the specifics once we kind of get into it. So my bad idea stems from the harem genre, which is very popular in JRPGs. Now, the specific character trope that I want to talk about in this regard is the oblivious harem protagonist. I honestly have started to find this really, really annoying. It's one thing to have a harem character or a harem protagonist, if you will. And we also have to face the fact that, either all or 95% of them are the opposite gender. I mean, you always got to have that one comedic or fanfic / pairing, same sex coupling, of course. But having that many people fawn over you and you not realizing it, come on. There's no way you can't know that every single person who has fallen for you has basically made you the center of their romantic universe. You just can't. I'm sorry, not with that many people. So, like examples I have here, Haseo from .hackgu, Reen Schwartzer, hell, even the protagonists of Persona 3 through 5, but because there's a lot of kind of choice involved in that, it's not as prominent. But the worst thing of it all is that in most of these scenarios, one of those choices is a canon story choice. And it is rarely ever the one you want it to be. Again, case in point, Haseo. Adelie is not a good choice, but it's the canon choice. Reen Schwartzer. Elisa was fine, but there were so many better options for Reen. And that's not because I'm an Emma fanboy. That's besides the point. The protagonists for Persona, they tend to gravitate you to the lover's arcana. And I mean, Yukari, no. Rise, sure, why not? Maybe. But and Anne? 50-50, I guess. But
I mean,
yeah.
Anne's, she's fine. But she's just that. She's fine. And, you're absolutely right that the choices that they seem to make are in terms of canon choices or stuff that sometimes it's not explicitly canon, but they will hint at it in non-romance path story scenes. And they never pick the most interesting people. I don't know why that is. And, really, there are so many better options. It's always generic girl X, it seems.
Yeah, they make the choice so obvious. I felt so bad in the case of Reen Schwartzer in that they made it obvious who the pairing was going to be within the first half hour of the first game in the series because of some stupid little incident where he falls or they all fall into their first testing ground and he lands in her chest or whatever it was and the whole embarrassing bull crap about that and you knew right off the bat this was going to be the thing that kind of brought them into the relationship fold. And this is really before, if you didn't do any research on the games, you didn't know that you might have romance options other than Elisa. So why? Just why? If you're going to create the harem option, most importantly, don't make anyone canon. Give yourself an option where you don't have to pick somebody.
Yeah, that's, I think, the most frustrating part is that, if you're going to offer choice, be careful what you insinuate in non-optional scenes. That's all, right?
Yeah.
And have the options make sense, for pity's sake. That's another problem, because often they just give you a whole bunch of choices, not all of them make any sense for the protagonist as a person. I mean, sorry to gripe on .hack, but pie is an option.
I will pose a little bit of an argument for pie. The only reason and the only argument that I have here is that those two were so alike at the very beginning that it actually did kind of feel right. Now let's ignore the fact that there's like I think a 7-year age difference. I think she's like mid-20s and he's 17, but they they had personalities that were so stubborn towards one another that I, I've seen it. I've seen this happen where that kind of connection, where that kind of connection can bond because of that stubbornness. So like I get where you're coming from, but and that's the only argument I could make that would make that even valid. So yeah.
But, like you said, there's also the fact that she's significantly older too and would have no reason to be interested in a teenager. So,
Well, and that's exactly the thing. Now, I don't know if Pi ever found out how old, but she was a system administrator, so technically she probably could have looked up his user info. So yeah, there's potential for understanding and misunderstanding on both sides there. From a personality base, I agree, but yeah, I think once you realize that this was some punk teenager, then I feel like things might have changed a little bit. All right, so that is my choices, my sets of tropes for this episode. We're going to move on to Sky next. So let's hear some good and bad tropes from you.
oh boy, it's my turn.
Yay!
Yay! All right. So my good idea is the quiet one. Now, y'all know I'm a fan of the silent protagonist. That's not just what this is, though it can include a silent protagonist. It's the quiet characters who don't say much until they need or have to. And then their words drop like a hammer. Because suddenly everyone pays attention because so-and-so doesn't normally say anything. And I like this trope because it can be used effectively to impart information in a way that everyone will pay attention to. If you want some examples of the quiet ones, you could go with Humphrey from Suikoden 1 and 2, who hardly ever says Dickie McGee's axe. Or, well, Minato, the protagonist of Persona 3, who, you only get to say the occasional line with him, and everyone pays attention because it's him. He who says nothing. And yeah, it's not only just about imparting information, but not only to the other characters, but to the people, to the player, right? Because if they're saying something, it has to be important. It's an automatic flag to the player going, hey, you might want to pay attention to this. And that's a useful tool to have at your disposal.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I'm trying to think of other options in here, but the only other one that I could think about would have been Surf from Digital Devil Saga. We didn't even hear Surf's voice until the second game, and technically it wasn't even him. It was his previous incarnation, if you will. But I always remember how impactful those scenes were when you started hearing who he was and comparing him to the current Surf. Like that was pretty intense in that regard.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it sort of wakes you up in the sort of flow of the gaming and makes you go, oh, okay, this is important, this is meaningful, this is something I need to remember, and so you do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Surf is another good example of it. many silent protagonists fall under this. Though I wouldn't say necessarily all, but particularly in cases though where you have a silent protagonist that has minimal choices but speaks their lines. Speaks the lines for the choices you do have. Those are the ones that are the best examples of the quiet one, because you also have the impact of the choice and the voice and their normal silence all coupled together in a package,
Yeah, exactly.
The thing that's striking me the most is how many overlapping games we have here. Like different tropes, but very similar games. Oh, it's just very interesting.
Yeah, that's true, and I think everyone will see that by the time the episode, like by the time we get through everything. Maybe just that particular ones come up as being particularly tropey. Yeah,
but yeah, like I'm with you though. Like as far as like silent protagonists and stuff go, like that's the jam, right? And like I love that strong silent type character who just shows up to drop some wisdom on y'all.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like you know it's important, and there's also a sort of similar type of character where you get some of them. Like I mentioned Humphrey. That's another trope into itself, right? The big burly warrior who doesn't say much. He's also that. He's like really tall and has heavy armor and is slow but hits like a truck. So anyhoozle. I am going with all my weird expressions today, so enjoy. So my bad idea is 2 girls to a team. This is exactly what it sounds like. So I kind of think of it as, and Rafe will have to forgive me, the Power Rangers effect. 5 characters, 2 of them female, right? Because we can't just have one female character, because then it will look like a token, right? But we also can't have gender parity, because that would be too much and would alienate fragile men. So 2 female characters with more male characters. I mean, it's just lazy at this point. It's a lazy attempt to give us more variety in female characters without threatening men. Because apparently men can't enjoy anything with a majority female cast, which we know isn't true. But that's what some people think like. Right? Oh, if there's too many women, it will be too feminine, and then it will alienate men. And, we all want to just vomit on their shoes. But I digress. So, I mean, I'm sure we can all think of examples of this. It didn't take much in my case. Shadow Hearts, Skies of Arcadia, Yakuza Like a Dragon, Rogue Galaxy, are all examples of this. But to be honest, like most games don't have gender parity either way. So, I mean, there are a lot of RPGs that have more female characters than that, but there's still more male characters, right? And usually probably about the same percentages, So yeah, I'm just tired of it. It's transparent at this point.
If it helps, I can think of one RPG with gender parity.
Ooh, one? You can think of one?
So far, and the only reason I can is because I'm playing it right now, Tales of Berseria. That's actually balanced, because you've got Velvet, Maggie Lou, and Eleanor, and then you've got Aizen, Rokuro. Oh, and Laphicet, yeah. So that's so there we go. So we've got it there. Now, like, yeah, you guys are right. It's just one example.
I can add one. I can add one more. Octopath Traveler.
Oh, I would have too. Yeah.
Yeah, 4 and 4.
Yeah, that's pretty unusual. I mean, I'm not saying that there aren't examples. Like, not all games this, but
Oh, I know. I'm like, really, I was just trying to, at least give you some kind of ray of hope in the whole scenario. Like
yeah,
that was it. And
no,
to give you some examples on our shelf.
I play Atelier games. I know there's ones out there. But all I'm saying is that it's obvious, it's transparent why they do this. And can they just stop? Like,
No, regardless, you're absolutely right. Yeah, it just honestly, it was just giving me something to think about. It's just like, what games could I come up with that actually have that? And I mean, yeah, it does. It took a lot of thinking, even for me to think of something that I'm currently playing right now. So I shouldn't have to think that hard.
no, that's exactly my point, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
just it's
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, so we've got Mel's selections left, and I'm very curious. So let's get to those.
Yeah. All right. So, my TV trope for a good idea is the evolving attack. So all games we have to have a sense of progression. Like that's kind of the point of games. Like we learn things and we make them more complicated, and then we, usually punch things harder. So this sense of getting better at our skills to make sure that we can make attacks take longer, that they do more damage, that they affect more monsters. That's like core to a lot of these ideas in games. And most games will have you do that by using like a skill tree or having you choose skills when you hit a certain level. But one thing I love in games is when they take into account the way that you've played and give you levels and bonuses depending on that. So in some of these games, there is the option to also level up beyond that. But a great example is Persona, right? Whatever Persona you have active is the one who's actively getting XP. And then there's different ways you can bonus that, but you can also just roll money and stuff into making your persona stronger. But I really love that you can sort of be like, I really want to get this ability from this persona, so I'm going to keep this one active, even though it may not be the best option in all scenarios. I think it adds a level of complexity and interest in the same way that I really like in Fire Emblem games that it matters who you stand by in battle. I just love the idea that it adds this complexity to how you level your character. Hack.gu does this, where you can get advanced arts as you use them. Star Ocean to the End of Time lets you hit with more uses of a spell. So it's basically like you have Magic Missile and you get more uses of it. And like Elder Scrolls Oblivion, like you can be like, I want skill and jump, and then you just jump everywhere and it helps you level. There are obviously flaws. That last one, people were very critical of Oblivion for this. I love it. I don't know. I really like getting bonuses in games, and I do this for D&D games and things I do as well. If you're doing a thing in character, you're going to get situational bonuses because I think they're really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense to me. One of the things they do, I think it's the Saga games that are mostly known for it, but I first experienced it with the Alliance Alive, where you actually learn skills through using different weapons in combat. There's a chance that you would learn, a skill for that weapon.
Yeah. Now that you mention it, there's another game I'm thinking of. Is it? I want to say it's a Shin Megami Tensei game, but where you like as you use your abilities, you have like a weapon, and the weapon will teach you an ability. Oh, why can't I place the game now? But like you'll be like, this sword teaches firebolt, and then you give it to this person, and they've used it 50 times, and when they do, they've learned it, and then you can give it to another party member, and they can learn it.
that was Final Fantasy IX was the first time I saw that.
Yeah, so
Um,
there's one.
so there was that. It's also in Tales of Berseria, so I'm playing it. I'm talking about it a little bit more. But then, like, I also think about games like the Disgaea series, where you basically get stronger in like everything. Um, so you would progress levels with weapon proficiency, skill usage. Um, as your stats grew, like if your agility got faster, you could move around in your like home a little bit faster, and your jump would get a little bit higher. Like it was only for like in your home base, but it was just kind of a fun little thing to see how your character is progressing as you go through it. So it was really fun. But from a stats perspective and from a skill ranking perspective, yeah, as you progressed with the weapon proficiency, you would unlock, new skills. You would get new skills as you leveled up. You would get new skills from using other skills. And you could learn skills from from other characters on your team if you were next to them. You could kind of borrow their magic and use it from them too. So there was a lot of different ways to kind of build up and a lot of unique ways there. So yeah, it is a great trope, and I think it needs to continue in a lot of games.
Yeah, I mean, most of the complaints I've heard about it come from people who sort of like they want to min-max in some way, you know? They're like, well, like I remember Oblivion, one of the things you could do was if you didn't choose skills to be, because you choose which skills are your major and your minor skills, and you get XP based on that. So if you pick major skills that you never use, like if you choose archery and you never do an arrow, then because the game does scaling difficulty of enemies, you can always have every enemy be a one-hit kill. And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, if you manipulate the system, like every game can be broken, right? Like I'm of the idea that like you shouldn't design your game expecting people not to break it. They're gonna do it, right? But I still think it's a really cool idea. Like just because it can be manipulated doesn't mean it's not good.
Yeah, as the person who broke Shadow Heart's Covenant, I wouldn't change a goddamn thing.
Right? Like, I don't know, it's fun to break games sometimes, and that's cool, do it. And it's fun to not break games sometimes, but like, I don't know, trying to control it as a designer, I think is a fraught effort. But like, I don't know, I think it's really fun. I really like to look at my character and be like, this is the life this character has lived. And not have it just be like, here's a list of quests I accomplished, but actually be like, oh, I know how to do blank because I got it here, or, etc. So, yeah, evolving attacks. Love them. Want them all the time. Okay, so my bad idea is called lazy backup, and I feel like everybody immediately knows what this is. I found it happens in like, I don't know, like 90% of games you get to pick your party. Like, it's just so incredibly common, it annoys the crap out of me. You have 8+ characters hanging out with you, and instead of having to handle all of them and manage them in battle, you get 4 or 5, and they are your team. And in a logical idea of the story, your other friends would be having their own fight to the side, or they'd be standing as backup, available to trade in if you need to. But there's a whole lot of games where if the active party goes down, you get a game over. And it just doesn't make any sense. If your friends are on the bench, they should jump in to help you. It's also annoying. Another thing that this trope does is when you have like the protagonist dies and then the whole game ends, even though like there's no reason your friend couldn't bring you back. Like we have items to pull you up from fainted or unconscious, or dead. So it makes very little sense. um, yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of versions of this. Final Fantasy X, you could switch party members, but only if they're active, so you can't do it if someone's unconscious. I don't know, it's just like there's all these different variants. I know Persona Q especially annoyed me because you have a party of 5, but you have all of the characters from 2 Persona games. I don't know if it's the new Persona Q2 has this problem as well with 3 parties. But like, really, I have so many people here who could help me. Why is no one doing it? Yeah, the list just goes on and on.
Yeah, I have hella opinions on this actually. One of the only examples I have seen of this sort of thing being handled well is actually a lot of modern Atelier games. because a lot, and even a couple of the older ones too, where they have actual switch in and out mechanics, where they can attack as they come in, or they have an ability they do as they go out of the party. Like the protagonist can go down and you're okay. Usually in that case, it's just when the dead character's turn comes up, they just let you pick which person you want to switch in.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah, it just makes so much more sense. Now, I mean, I think in some cases it does make sense to get a game over when the protagonist dies. I understand why it's done in certain cases. I also think sometimes it's because the protagonist is grossly overpowered. So how do they counteract that? Well, they counteract that by saying, "Oh yeah, your protagonist is amazing, can do all this shit." Like, have 10 personas that they can switch back and forth between, to use Persona as an example. But if he dies, you're done.
Yeah, exactly. I know when I was playing Strikers, my partner saw me playing it, was like, "Oh, like your health is low," and I'm like, "No. In this one, if I die, it doesn't matter."
Yeah.
In this version of the Persona universe.
Well, and in that case, like, I think it's a story thing. They're trying to emphasize the importance of the protagonist. Like, if the protagonist goes down, like, everyone else is fucked. Because frankly, with Persona 3 through 5, I mean, that's the reality of the situation. The rest of the party is pathetic compared to the protagonist. The power differential.
Yeah, it's just completely
Massive.
on a different tier.
Yeah. Like, it's not even close. And I mean, if we want to take, for example, mainline Shin Megami Tensei option, well, I'm playing Nocturne. The protagonist, if the protagonist dies, it is a game over in that game. However, your only other party members, in the vast majority of cases, are other demons, which technically have to be summoned. So, if the protagonist dies, it wouldn't make any sense logically for it to continue.
Well, exactly. In this case, if the protagonist dies, the demons are no longer bound to him, so they would just be allowed to roam free, like no fuss, no trouble.
Yeah.
It was never about forging a bond with them like it was with the Persona games, where if you know if you've made a friendship, a bond, that kind of thing, especially when Persona 4 was talking all about bonds and whatnot, the loss of the core of those bonds would actually probably be pretty devastating. I don't think anybody would have the morale to continue. And that's a typical war strategy. If you take out the leader, then the troops lose their morale. So I get it. It actually makes a little bit more sense to me based on that logic. But when it comes to the demons, like that's just way more sensible.
What I'm saying is there has to be a reason for it. If a party wipe or the protagonist dying causes a game over, there has to be a reason for it.
Yeah, like we're in the protagonist's mindscape. So if they pass out, we're all gone. Like there's ways you can make it make sense.
Yeah.
And there's certainly games I've played where absolutely it makes sense. Like I'm thinking, because Persona 3 would be a great example of like expecting, like, why are they not stepping in? But it's canon, like, that those people wait behind, right? Like, you can go back to the entrance and get them, but they are not in in that attack area with you.
Yes.
You have to go get them, and that makes sense, right? Like, it's a dangerous area, and if we need to trade out, we need to trade out, but we have to go do that somewhere safe. That makes total sense to me. But like a lot of games, if we're all traveling in the wilderness together, like, come on, we're all here.
Well, yeah, exactly. And this is why those, and that second scenario you brought up, like, this is the sort of game where it would make sense to have options, fluid, interesting options for switching characters in and out of the party, right? Because they are with you, they are traveling with you. You have no reason, there's no reason for them to stay back. Having a smaller party is only more about how many people can attack a single enemy or group of enemies at the same time safely, right? But, people get caught up, like designers get caught up in the tropes and the limitations that games had in the past and don't use logic to think it through necessarily. And that's where you get situations where, the protagonist dying ends the game for no particular reason. No, it's not necessary.
No, I exactly. All right, so I think that is going to cover our talks about some good and bad character tropes out there. So, yeah, I want to know what you guys think. What are some tropes you guys like? What are some that you think are questionable at best? Let us know. A couple ways you can do that. You can hit us up on our group email. It's xpbillionaires@gmail.com. Or you can hit us up on our social media. You can find me on Twitter at billionairesxp. Or check out my Instagram at RafeThegrim. Sky, where can everyone find you?
I'm at SkyKnightXP on Twitter and SkyKnight.xp on Instagram.
And Mel, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Feminist Gamer or Twitter at FeministGamer3. And you can check out D4 Adventures, which is a very fun game that I play on Twitch every Wednesday.
Amazing. And don't forget, xpbillionaires.ca is your one-stop shop for everything XP Billionaires. Written pieces, episode releases, the weekly RPG writing roundup, and all the other stuff that we do will be there. As a reminder, we will be posting all of the links to the tropes we talked about today on our episode release post, so make sure you watch for that as well if you want to follow along and have a better understanding, because we didn't really kind of go into detail on them. And lastly, if you do want to help out the show, you can send donations through the links on the website as well. So once again, xpbillionaires.ca. All right, so that is going to be it for us this week. And just remember, characters make the game just as much as they make you want to keep gaming. Think about that. And we'll see you next week.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye.